the invitation to present here tonight. My name is Tony Grissim, and I'm coming to you from Monterey, where I grew up. And I just thought I'd start by explaining my relationship to the lady that I refer to as Aunt Marion. Marion Hollins in the upper right, and this is straight from my wife's ancestry.com folder or database. Marion Hollins had a brother who's my grandfather, Gerald Hollins, and my mom was born to Gerald Hollins, and she moved out to Pasatiempo when it was just getting started in the early 1930s, where she met my dad, John Grissim, and so here I am. I never knew Aunt Marion, but she had died about 16 years before I was born, and so I'm going to just sort of talk to you about the personal journey I've been on for the past couple of years, as I've gotten more and more enthusiastic about memorializing her. So I thought I'd start out with some Pasatiempo pictures of interest. This is a photograph of my mom in front of what I'm told is one of the first buildings out there at Pasatiempo, the real estate sales office. That's Marion's dog, Carlos. And I'm sure that there's lots of pictures of Marion with her dog, Carlos, like this one here. And of course, for those of you, I'm sure everybody on this call is aware that, she was the visionary and the developer and the financier of the Pasatiempo Golf Club and the whole real estate development. It's really her biggest project, and it was all 100% her, pretty much. I've actually got a couple of 3 photos of Marion with my parents. So this is at 33 Hollins Drive in the part of what used to be outdoors called the cave. And there's my father sitting right there having a meal with Marion tending the fireplace behind him. And here's another view from the same day. There's my mom on the right foreground. You can see my dad on the left and the side of Marion's head over there on the right. And I came across these pictures when Angela Chestnut, the current homeowner of 33 Hollins Drive, was gracious enough to allow my sister Cynthia Hollins and I downstairs to wander around and look at this place in 2019 during the homes tour. Very grateful to her for doing that. And I was stunned to come across these pictures. I'd never seen them before. So before Aunt Marion ever made her mark in the world of golf, she was considered to be one of the greatest athletes of her time in the 1920s and the early late teens. She was an equestrian without peer. She had a man's polo handicap. She could play with the men just as easily as any of them. And she marched as a suffragette for the right to vote under the banner that failure is impossible. This was just 2 or 3 years before she founded the Women's National Golf and Tennis Club with a women's membership. If you've never seen video of her and her golf swing, I'm going to take care of that right now. Very rare footage. She had a beautiful swing. And when she hits this one ball here, watch her stride away. That's a very confident young woman. And the more I read about her and learn about her, she was just her own weather system. She was a force of nature, always looking ahead. And so here's one of my favorite photographs of her as a young woman. Remember in 1913, she entered the Women's Amateur National Championship and took 2nd place in her first try. 8 years later, she was the national champion, beating Alexis Sterling. And this on the right is the image that I used to design her new grave marker out here in the cemetery in Monterey. And I basically took the language right off of the plaque that's under the photo in the Hollins house in the bar. I think it's over the fireplace. And I liked what it said so much. I copied it and then added the bottom inductee to the World Golf Hall of Fame. She's the one that hired Alistair McKenzie to develop the Cypress Point Golf Course. She was the developer, but to design the actual course. And she had a lot to do with another major course in the United States, and that would be Augusta National Golf Club, because it was her who brought her to Pasatiempo and had Bobby Jones here, her good friend, play golf at both Cypress Point as well as at Pasatiempo on opening day. And he saw what McKenzie could do, and he ended up hiring McKenzie to design Augusta National. This article is from 2019, long before she was nominated and inducted into the Hall of Fame. So this article is available online. And of course, she's the one who basically decided that this iconic hole would exist as a par 3. She dropped 2 or 3 balls right here on the tee area to your left, and she proved that you could bang them 200 yards across the water and land in the area where the green is. Still considered one of the most beautiful holes in golf. Mackenzie gives her full credit for the design and the vision for this hole. So my personal journey, getting into my great aunt's history, she was just always part of the landscape in my life growing up as a young guy. I heard about great Aunt Marion this, Aunt Marion that, but she had died so many years before I was born. We weren't the kind of family that go visit our antecedents down at the cemetery, so I really didn't have a clear idea of where she fit into the overall, the legacy of golf in the United States. But it was in 2019 when I saw this TV clip on KSBW, and I saw that the club was getting ready to celebrate the 90th anniversary of Pasatiempo. I thought it might be kind of fun to reach out and introduce myself to somebody at the club, and I chose Emily, who was identified as a historian. And I remember having met Bob Beck, the previous historian, when my mom and I came out and had lunch out at the Hollins house sometime around 1998, 99. And so I reached out to Emily and just basically started talking to her about my Aunt Marion. And it was Emily who stunned me when she told me that my Aunt Marion was buried 5 minutes from my house, and I never knew it. And so I hung up speaking to her for the very first time, and I went down to the cemetery and quickly located where her grave was. And this is what I found. I found a 76-year-old, very weather-beaten, tired grave marker surrounded by kikuyu grass, and this is what it looked like. It was a pretty simple affair. And so I started thinking about what could be done in order to try to improve and memorialize Marion, because I'd read David Outerbridge's book called Champion in a Man's World, and I realized what she did and I read it again, and then I said, something should be done here. So really my very first effort to do something to memorialize her was I thought about bringing her home to Pasatiempo and disinterring her and her remains and seeing if maybe something could be done in conjunction with the board of directors of Pasatiempo Inc. And so I convinced Emily to take a chance on me and give me 15 minutes on the agenda on September 4th, 2019. And I pitched this idea to the entire board, who didn't know what I was there to talk about or who I was. And they sort of blinked and said, "Oh, wow, that's interesting. We'll get back to you." And to their credit, they spent the next several months, because I asked for an answer by January 1st. They did take a good, serious look at possibly doing what I was thinking of, but it just didn't work out. But I am appreciative of Scott and the rest of the board members who invested time in looking into this possibility. But it's just non-trivial to bury someone at a golf course. Just trust me on that. So I put the project down for a while, and then this was the shot heard around the world in my life. It was in April of 2020, as COVID was just getting ramped up and started, that it was announced that Marion had been selected for induction alongside Tiger Woods and Tim Finchin and one other lady into the World Golf Hall of Fame. This induction is scheduled to take place in 2022. And so really it was announced for 2021, but because of COVID, it's been pushed into March of next year. So what I'm trying to do is build a memorial to her before that induction, actually before the end of this year. So I've divided my own personal efforts into 3 buckets, basically. Part 1 was updating her grave marker. And I did that. I reached into my own pocket and designed this marker here. And again, I swiped the language from that plaque in the Hollins house and ran it by Emily to make sure it was correct. And this is now the current existing grave marker out at the cemetery. This piece is done. I also was able to convince President Dick Barrett of the Cypress Point Club to have his greens superintendent come over with a guy and replace the grass over her grave with turf from the Cypress Point Club. So the finished product before and after looks like this. So that's the grave that I found in 2019. That's what it looks like right now. Part 1 done. So I found myself in good company because this grave marker shown in the back of my truck here was purchased by Sam Morse, SFB Morse, the developer of Del Monte Properties and the Pebble Beach Golf Course. And he and I are the only ones who have ever purchased a grave marker for Marion Hollins. So I thought about, well, what should I do with this? It's kind of it's a historic artifact, 76 years old, having watched over her remains. So I decided to write a letter to the Cypress Point Club and basically offer it to them as something that could be installed somewhere down at Cypress Point. And my timing was just absolutely exquisite because it just turned out that they were completing plans for a remodel for a new terrace overlooking the 16th hole at Cypress Point. And it's under construction. It's almost done at this point. And it took the Cypress Point Club about 2 days to get back to me, accept my donation, and decide to rename or give a name to this new terrace. It's going to be called the Hollins Terrace in honor of my Aunt Marion. And my family couldn't be happier about this, because what the architect did is he took the grave marker shown here in the middle of the picture and he built it and had it installed vertically into a wall. So it's not super prominent. You have to kind of wander around and walk down some stairs and then sort of notice it and walk over to it. And then this is what you'll see, the old grave marker at this new Hollins Terrace at Cypress Point Club. And it's called a discovery feature in the language of a landscape architect. And this is the plaque that's going to be installed right next to it shortly. My family couldn't be happier, and I just want to say thank you to Dick Barrett, president of Cypress Point Club. He's been wonderful to work with. Okay, part 3 of my journey is the Marion Hollins Memorial. So let me tell you what it is. It's a landscaped area down at the Monterey Cemetery, about 55 feet away from and overlooking her grave. And the plans that I've come up with have the installation of Irish yew trees, a bench, a memorial boulder with a plaque on it talking about Marion's life and her significance. And an inspirational plaque is what I'm shooting for. Excuse me. So this gives you an idea of from overhead, the relationship between her grave in the upper left and the site of the new memorial. Now there's a tree there in this photo which has since been removed. It was dead. And then over to the lower right, you can see some of the mature Irish yew trees, which have already been installed at the cemetery. This is just inside the gates to the cemetery, and you can see the mature Irish yew trees, probably about 100 years old. You can see some California live oaks in the distance to the right there. And on the farthest oak, just past that farthest live oak, is where the Hollins Memorial will be constructed. So this is a photo I took in 2019 and showing in the lower right, the old grave marker. Again, that's already been replaced. But looking back to the street, you can kind of see that it's not the most prettiest part of the cemetery. And that's where the memorial will be built, in that location in the upper left. This is the site as I found it. And by the way, the city of Monterey, I've got them to cooperate to provide the land. And they're just letting us build on this area here as long as we stay clear of future and current graves. And then once there's a bench installed, people will be able to sit there and look off into the cemetery, and 50 or 60 feet away is Marion's grave. The grave marker is flush with the grass in this particular part of the cemetery. These are the original conceptual drawings from the landscape architect that I hired, and a top-down view on the left looking out towards her grave, and then looking south towards the proposed memorial. Since then, now that we've taken a closer look at it, we've modified the design just a little bit to add a few more trees and some shrubbery to really make it screen off. It would be sort of like a natural amphitheater where people can just sit and reflect. By the way, this grave is probably the most visited grave in the whole cemetery. I was told that by the city of Monterey employee in charge of that. Monterey Peninsula is a mecca for golf, and people come from all over the world, and they have left golf balls regularly at her grave. So we have a goal to raise $35,000 to build this. And the funding is 100% provided by tax-deductible donations. And to date, I've gotten major support from Cypress Point Club. I'm very grateful to the Pasatiempo Golf Club for their generous donations, so thank you. The Glen Head Country Club in Long Island, and that's the site where Marion built the Women's National Golf and Tennis Club in 1923. Recently, the American Society of Golf Course Architects Foundation has jumped on board. The Metropolitan Golf Association, again in New York, they stepped up immediately and said, oh yeah, we're very happy to contribute to memorialize Marion. Pebble Beach Company has stepped up. And then the California Women's Amateur Championships has stepped up. Really, if you look at the top 3 bullets here, those are 3 of the 4 golf clubs that Marion had a direct impact on. And I'm hopeful that the Augusta National Golf Club, somebody might get in touch with them and advise them that there's a worthwhile project going on. I've found it's very difficult to connect with that club. I don't know how to do it. If anybody listening knows how to make that happen, I'd sure appreciate an introduction so I could make this same briefing to whoever needs to see it out in Georgia. Down at the bottom, California Women's Amateur Championships is the 501c3 nonprofit that's managing all of the tax-deductible donations. They're providing financial oversight, and any donations that anybody chooses to make goes through them. I'm the project manager for this Marion Hollins Memorial. So I'm working under their oversight. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to the president of this organization, Rhonda Moore, because until she sort of came into my life and showed me a path forward using her 501c3 as a vehicle to do it, I wasn't quite sure how to do it, but she gave me exactly the coaching and infrastructure I needed to move forward on this. And now's the time I want to say a couple of special thanks for the folks on this call. Emily Chorba, she's done so much. First of all, she's the spearhead or one of the primary drivers of having my Aunt Marion inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it took her 3 tries, and I know she wasn't the only one to have participated in this. I know that people from Cypress Point also did it, people from the USGA, but I'm telling you, I know it was Emily who's carried the lion's share of this workload. So thank you, Emily. Damon and Haiti, I'm so glad to see that you're on the call. Thank you so much for your generous donation. I really appreciate it. Please say hi to your husband if he's around. And then I'd already mentioned that the Pasatiempo Golf Club came through recently. I'm very grateful. So my family thanks everybody on this list. So really, my goal here is to remedy the fact that Marion Hollins has largely, to this day, has been forgotten by history, and she really deserves to be elevated into her rightful place in the history of golf and to be respected and honored for that. She's a real inspiration for young women. And again, she was just like her own weather system. She was doing things that no woman did back 100 years ago when a woman was typically seen and not heard, and carried and used her husband's name and didn't have her own aspirations. She's an amazing lady, and I'm trying to build an appropriate memorial that'll last over 100 years. And so anybody who sees their way clear to sending us some donations, and I'm asking if anybody could please send us a few dollars. I need it in order to finish this thing. I'm trying to do it this year, and it'll be a worthwhile contribution, and I'll use the money wisely. There's 2 ways to donate. You can either send a check directly to QUAC, which again is the nonprofit, California Women's Amateur Championship. This lady, Robin Hamilton, listed on the left here, she's the treasurer and officer of that organization. You just write Marion Hollins in the check memo, and it'll get into the right account. And then over to the right, if you're more of a jump on your smartphone and just get it done while you're sitting on the couch, you can go to GoFundMe, use the search tool to type in Marion Hollins, and there's a way that you can donate that way as well. So thank you in advance for any donations you might be able to send our way. Also, if you've not gone to marionhollins.org, I'm going to give you a preview of it. This is one of the sort of accomplishments over the past few months, is that I've been able to get a nice website built. And the title is right here. It's time to give one of the most important early figures in the United States golf history the memorial she deserves for her timeless contributions and trailblazing accomplishments. And it's here that you can scroll down and learn about.
Tony, you need
Yes?
to share that. You need to share that screen because we're not seeing the website.
Apologies. Let me
No,
fix that.
no, it's a Zoom thing.
Yeah, all right. Let me.
It's a Zoom thing. But yeah, go back. There you go. So when you click
I'm just
on
going to leave it here and ask you to jot down marionhollins.org and explore. I took the information that Emily, with permission, she gave me the green light to reproduce the same information that was used by the Hall of Fame selection committee and the committee that finally inducted her. There's some videos there, and there's an easy way to find a way to donate if you go to marionhollins.org. So that's the presentation I came here to make. Thank you in advance for anybody who might be able to kick in some money to help get this built.
I'm gonna put my camera on.
Tony,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Kathy Elmore. Could you go back to that screen so I can get the zip code, the area code for Pebble Beach, California? That's it.
Tony, it's Audrey Jacob here. Can we, I think there's a donate button on the website page, right? Can we donate via the website as well?
That's exactly right. That's the point I was making. Oh, trust me, I've got donate buttons all over this thing.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Kathy, did you get your address down?
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
I was down just to the last number.
Okay. I can send you it to you. I can text it to you too.
So Emily has the women's clubs here, the New Truce, and the other one got personally involved in this?
No, they haven't got, no, they haven't. I did a presentation to the women's 18-hole club, and Gail has donated, I have donated, and Sue.
It's just going individually.
Yeah, so we need people to donate, but then I approached Pasatiempo Inc. also to donate, and so I got a nice sum of money for them to donate as well. But we still want, I'd still like to see a nice outpouring from our Pasatiempo residents and members to this effort, because we wouldn't have a place to live if it wasn't for Marion. Live and golf if it wasn't for Marion. So do you think I should do it to the Noof True?
Yeah, I'd contact Lynn Ganji and tell her what's up. And that I suggested that maybe the New Truth would like to have their name on it as part of the donation group.
Great. That'd be great. And Tony, I can just have them watch this presentation, so you don't have to do it again.
Thank you very much.
Emily, should I have recorded it? My button has a record thing. I guess I should have.
No, Audrey's recording it.
Oh, okay. Good.
Cool. All right. Are there any other questions for Tony?
Like to comment that I think.
I can't hear you, Haiti.
Okay, you know what, sometimes I have, can you hear me now?
Barely, but talk close to your microphone. Put your computer in your face.
Okay, I turned up the volume. Can you hear me now? No.
I can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes.
I've got the computer in my face. I just want to say, Tony, you did a fabulous job with that presentation. Really great, inspiring. I can't imagine that, especially any woman out there that golfs, especially at the courses that Marion was involved with, wouldn't want to donate. Great.
And, I'm very proud that I've got 3 out of the 4 clubs that she influenced have signed on. I kind of look at those 4 clubs as the legs of her table. And so I'm hopeful that I'll be able to somehow make a pitch to the Augusta National Golf Club at some point in the near future.
Right, but like I told Tony, one of the Augusta members has donated to the memorial, but a member is one thing, getting the club to do it is another. So we'd like to get the club to do it. So
Can you hear me?
Hi, Shirley.
Hi, I just want to thank you, Tony. That was a great presentation and you've done so much work. Thank you.
Thank you. And my niece Abigail's on this call, and after she heard it the first time when you had me earlier a month ago, Emily, she just couldn't believe that there's already not a memorial built to her. I mean, I'm paraphrasing your words, but you said you're a young woman who's just really inspired by her. And I get that when I talk to some of the young people that are seeing this for the first time, they can't believe in this day and age that she's not elevated. And that's really what I'm trying to accomplish. It's for people like my niece here.
There's a lot of important reasons to keep her memory alive and build off of it and, you know, inspire a new generation of women. So I was always really proud growing up to be related to someone that was very confident, very strong, very talented.
Definitely. Well, so you'll be happy to know, I mean, the just this weekend I spent preparing and then delivering for some of you may or may not know, well, everybody's heard of the Golf Channel, and Matt Janella used to work for the Golf Channel doing all kinds of things, but Pasatiempo is one of his favorite courses. And because the US Women's Open is going to be held June 3rd through 6th up at the Olympic Club, now he doesn't work for the Golf Channel anymore, but he works, he went independent, and he's got a production company called, it's very cute, Dawn Patrol Productions. And they came up on Sunday and they interviewed me and Ken Woods, and they're interviewing a few other people that they know, Julie Inkster, I'm hoping, as well. And they're going to do a 4 or 5 minute video of us talking about Marion during, while the US Women's Open is running, and it'll be on the Golf Channel. So, and, you know, and after I talked with Matt, you know, he's the one that interviewed me. And so I hope I did her justice. He said, well, assuming it's good, you know, it'll be on a lot. And he said, God, you know, Marion, I wish I knew her. You know, we all do, because the more I read about her, if Marion was going to be involved in anything, or if she was going to be somewhere, or if she invited you, you knew it was going to be a good time. So, and one of the other questions he asked me is, well, you know, back after women got the vote, do you think she got a lot of pushback from doing her projects? And I don't think that she did. I think she had a lot of respect already. And, you know, getting the Women's National, she sold out the membership before they even opened. And then when she came here to Monterey, same thing with Cypress Point, she got all, you know, and she got international or national members. So she was like, I like what you say, Tony, that she was her own weather. What was it you say? Her own weather department?
System. Yeah, her
Weather
own
system.
Yep.
She was a force. And I really don't think that she got much pushback trying to do these things. And that is really something for her. I mean, because, you know, I feel like I get pushed back because, you know, I'm not the same personality as Marion. So, you know, hats off to her, and she definitely does need to be honored. So, you know, but that's something to look for during the US Open is, I hope, and I will send everybody the link to that video because they'll send it to me when they get it done. So.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And maybe I'll see you up at Pasatiempo sometime.
All right.
Or down at the dedication of the Marion Hollins Memorial.
Yeah. So do you know how much has been contributed so far? Because I know that what shows up on GoFundMe is one thing, but then people send just checks that don't register on the GoFundMe.
Yeah, I don't have an exact number, but I think we're a bit north of 60% of goal, something like that.
Okay, great, great. All right, so we all have homework.
All right, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
All right,
you, Tony.
thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Night.
Okay, so now I told you about Matt Janella, and then the other thing that Tony has done. Oh, did he sign off? Oh no, I see Abby there. I don't know.
Was I supposed to get him back?
No, it's like, it's okay, but he knows about this, so it's nothing new. But there's another thing that he's done, and he reached out to a podcaster called Colin, oh, what's his name? Colin Lewis. And he does a podcast called Talking Golf. And we're going to do a podcast with him about Marion Hollins also. But I listened to his podcast with Sean Tully, who is the groundskeeper up at the Meadow Club. another Mackenzie course up in Marin County, and they did 5 hours of podcast on Alistair Mackenzie, and so much of it talked about also Marion Hollins. And Colin Lewis said, and this was like a couple of years ago before I was historian, and Colin was going, yeah, I gotta get Bob Beck on to, to talk about Marion Hollins. Well, now he's gonna get me, and Tony and I are gonna do this podcast. So anyway, that's another exciting piece. So we are getting Marion's name out there. And again, thanks to Tony, because he's done a lot of reaching out. So any more questions on that? Now we can go to Pasatiempo Estates and one of the local residents and their impact on or what they've showed us about Pasatiempo. And that is their relationship between it's Pasatiempo, the Osgood family, and the Bakers, Cecil F. Baker. So Audrey, I'm going to turn off my video and I'm going to share my screen. So I hope I can just bear with me while I stumble a little bit. Share screen, and I will do that. And I'm going to share. And now tell me, I want to show the PowerPoint slide. Are you seeing the slide presentation now? Called Pasatiempo, the Osgoods, and the Bakers.
We are seeing that. Emily, can you hit full screen? Are you on full screen?
I am on full screen, so
Okay,
you
great.
might need to do it on your own.
Okay.
So yeah, this presentation is going to be Pasatiempo, the Osgoods, and the Bakers, and their connection briefly. David Osgood, he grew up in Pasatiempo in the 50s to early 70s. I think he was born in 1950, or maybe, yeah, I think he was born in 1950. If anyone knows John Cowden, he is a contemporary of John Cowden. And I think John is born in 1950. Anyway, now Berthelin Osgood Alien, I don't know how to say that, was grandmother to David and also was a longtime friend of Teresa Baker. And Teresa Baker was a decorator in New York in the 1920s. And she was also the wife of Cecil Baker, or Cecil F. Baker. And Cecil Baker was an investor and member of the board of directors of the Santa Cruz Development Company, whose president was Marion Hollins. And he and Teresa were dear and devoted friends to Marion. And he was a huge financier of Pasatiempo, as you're going to learn. And I think this will take about 15 minutes, so we'll be able to wrap by 8 o'clock. So David Osgood was great. He reached out to me and he provided the photos and the articles for this short presentation. And this is his story. So first of all, here's a photo of, this is Cecil F. Baker. This is his wife, Teresa, and this is his grandmother, Bertie. And I believe this is taken at Marion Hollins' home, because here's the cave. Yeah. Right there. And then this is that incredible patio with the tree stump decking, if you will. So that's pretty cool.
Emily, can you leave that there for a sec? I want to take a picture of it.
Okay, sure. I know, isn't it wonderful? And who knows, this could be Tony's mom, Phyllis, for all we know, sitting in the table doing something.
Okay, thanks. All set.
And now who's David Osgood? So David Osgood, this is a picture of him and Kevin Larkin. They were both residents of Pasatiempo. They both grew up in Pasatiempo. And this is when they went down to Knott's Berry Farm just to go to Knott's Berry Farm. But when they were at the Long Beach airport, it just so happened President Johnson was there for some rally, and there's Air Force One. But I don't know which one is David. I don't know if it's this guy or this guy. So anyway, but he sent me that picture, and both Kevin Larkin used to live in Audrey's house, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll untangle all these mysteries eventually and see these faces. So, oh, right. One of the things, he grew up, his grandmother was Bertie, and she was that close friend of Cecil and Teresa Baker's for years. And then David's dad, Bill, was itching to see the West Coast, and Cecil Baker gave him a job in one of his gold mining operations. And again, I will tell you a little bit more about Cecil. David's parents, Bill and Catherine, bought a home on South Circle in 1948. And then in 1952, with 2 sons in tow, Bill and Catherine moved to 5 Bird Hill Lane to take care of Bertie. So who's Bertie? So Bertie, the grandmother of David, and this is a picture of her in August of 1938, and she is at, can anyone tell me, where is she standing?
Hollins House.
Yes, exactly. It hasn't changed, has it? She's standing in front of the Hollins house, and she worked as an interior decorator with Teresa Baker. So that's why their friendship goes back, you know, it's a long time. Now, Bertie married William Parkman Osgood, and they had a son, Parkman Bill Osgood. Now, I think that Bertie did not stay married to Mr. Osgood for a very long time because of her other last name, this one, Aline, or however you say that. So I haven't gotten all the details from David Osgood. But anyway, Bertie came out to visit her son Bill and the Bakers in 1938. And then she stayed and ended up buying 5 Bird Hill Lane in 1943 for $8,000. So, you know, Bird Hill is 5 Bird Hill Lane is now where that big the new house was built. You know, the white one, the one that was brown and then had the cow in front of it and all that. So that's Bird Hill Lane, 5 Bird Hill Lane, 8,000. And then finally, they're such good friends that she helped Teresa Baker write her live story, which was published in 1961, and it was dedicated to Bertie. So who was Teresa Baker? Well, she founded the decorating firm of Thiedlow Incorporated after World War I. And Thiedlow Inc. is derived from the name of the first 2 letters in the names of its founding partners. So Theresa Chalmers Baker, or Teresa Baker, right? Edna DeFries and Charlotte or Lottie Chalmers Handy. And so obviously Teresa and Charlotte are sisters. And then the final in Thiedlow, W stands for work. So TH for Thiedlow, you know, ED, and then LOT, and then W. So Thiedlow. And Thiedlow, based in New York, was one of the big 3 design firms founded by women, not men, after World War I. So again, more powerhouse gals, which is pretty cool. Now, Teresa, she decorated Marion Hollins' personal home, and she also decorated the Hollins house. And after, during World War II, she worked with her husband on the British War Relief Society. And then finally, towards the end of her life, she wrote this book called A Decorator's Dizzy Decade, and she dedicated it to Bertie. So I think they had quite a fine, wonderful friendship. And here's Bertie. I mean, here's Teresa right there with her dog. And I have the book. David Osgood was so sweet, so he gave Pasatiempo a copy of that book, which I have. So I don't know how available it is. I haven't looked for it online, but anyway, we have it, and this is what the cover looks like. So now, Teresa just happened to marry Cecil Baker, and it's Cecil F. Baker, and prior to Pasatiempo, well, first of all, he was born in Great Britain, and prior to Pasatiempo, he received degrees from Oxford and Harvard, and he was a major in the RAF during World War I and a pioneer in night flying. And he was so good that he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the RAF Cross, and the French Legion of Honor. and he was the first RAF officer to win those first two medals. And his research on chemical fertilizers led to the revival of alfalfa fields in Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, after Pasatiempo, in World War II, he organized the British War Relief Society and received, along with his wife, and Bertie helped, and he received a special commendation by King George VI. So that was pretty cool. And then also he was a director for the Audubon Society. Now, Cecil Baker, of course, had other interests because he was a financier and a wealthy man. So he was, this photo though, first of all, is taken in 1940, and it's Cecil and his wife, and I don't know this gentleman, but they're in front of one of his gold dredges. So he was, like I said, he was an expatriate English financier, but his workhorse history with various mining companies suggests that he also was perhaps a geologist, because you can see he was, you can't see because I'm reading the bullet points here. He was president of the American Potash and Chemical Company, which was founded in 1926. And those folks dealt in borax. So there's one mineral. And then he was associated with the Consolidated Goldfields of South Africa Limited. That was founded in 1887. Of course, a year before he was born, but he delved deep into that. And then he was president of the Fresnillo Company, and that is a Mexican company. It's a mining operation that began from Penoles, and that originated in 1887, but again, way before he was born, but then he got involved later with it. And he was a director of other mining companies. So no wonder he had a lot of money and the acumen for investing. He was also a member of the London Institute of Mining and Metallurgy and the American Institute of Mining Engineers. So during his Pasatiempo years, so, you know, he met Marion through her father, but, you know, she was born in 1892. So he's just 3 years older than her, he and his wife. Now, Baker consulted with Dawson Olmsted regarding the plans for the Pasatiempo Estates property in April of 1929, and both he and Marion conferred with Olmsted on the proposed budget for the overall project, Pasatiempo Estates. And he had been also one of the, you know, being a mineral guy and a gold guy, you know, so he had that feel for geology. He'd been one of the original investors in Marion Hollins Kettleman oil deal that had netted her personally $2.5 million in May of 1929. But that the whole find was, you know, that whole find, when it burst and finally, or when it blew, if you will, and produced so much oil, they sold it for $10 million, if you recall. So he got a certain amount of share, but Marion got 2.5 million. Now, he built 2 homes at Pasatiempo, and Baker number 1, that's this one. It was a cottage located just above the 9th green on Clubhouse Drive. And then Baker number 2 up here is a house built above the 17th green at 62 Pasatiempo Drive. And that was designed by William Worcester. Now this photo, let's see, this was taken, I think, in 1936. It's an aerial in 36. So you can see there are no trees yet. And here's the 9th, but still the bunkers are there. So he held a significant amount of debt that was incurred by Marion Hollins from 1934 to 1938. And she had borrowed $650,000 from him, but they were such dear friends, he would not foreclose on her. In December of 1938, but finally, Pasatiempo Estates was sold to Bill Howard and Duncan Davis, who were 2 San Francisco real estate men. And they later, that year, no, maybe a couple of years later, they were bought out by Bill Howard's uncle, Philip Lansdale. Now, Cecil Baker continued to hold an interest in Pasatiempo until November of 1940, but then he finally sold out. And remember, he was holding Marion's paper of $650,000, but he finally sold out to Lansdale, which effectively ended his and Marion Hollins' involvement in Pasatiempo. So, you know, what's interesting is, does anybody know the Bottle Jack Winery? This is that property up there. This is where the, I can't think of their last name right now. Yeah, so that's up there. You should go. I highly recommend doing a wine tasting or going up there and visiting them. It's the most amazing view. As you can see, it's a little bit higher than Pasatiempo Clubhouse. So my last slide and history talk, and then we'll just look at a few pictures after that. Philip Lansdale and Pasatiempo residents. So in 1940, as the new owners of Pasatiempo, Philip Lansdale rented the Baker Cottage number 2, which was, you know, occupied space over here. But he later purchased, he rented Baker number 1, not number 2. Number 1 was what's the Mackenzie room now, right? But then later he purchased Baker number 2, the house on the 17th. Baker number 2. Oh, excuse me, I'm all mixed up with my Baker numbers. So let me just say, he purchased this. He purchased the Mackenzie. I got my numbering wrong. He purchased the Mackenzie, and then he made it into a clubhouse and pro shop for the members, which is now the remodeled Mackenzie room. And then he turned the clubhouse, the Hollins house here, into his private personal home. And he lived there until it was sold to Tanner Wilson family in the early 1950s. So as you look at this photo, you can see how, yeah, it's kind of a nice little private home with the gardens. It's very similar to what it is right now. But notice too, that where the Hollins house parking lot is, there's a house here, and then there's this little gazebo thing here, which I think I showed you when I showed you a picture of Birdie. So I might have to go back to that. But and then here is Hattie's house down here. Hattie, there's your house, the clubhouse, the original clubhouse down here. And then this was a guest house right here. So this is a great photo. You can see they've started to maybe planted a few trees. They haven't grown very much. So anyway, then in December 13th, 1941, Pasatiempo, including the Baker Cottage, was purchased from Philip Lansdale by a combination of Santa Cruz citizens, the golf course members, shareholders, and Pasatiempo residents, thus saving the course from extinction, because Lansdale wanted to plow it under and grow wheat on it or something. So thank goodness, the Nyes and a few other names, that'll be another presentation, but thank goodness they got together. And, you know, nobody made any money here, but they got together and they saved this iconic golf course. I mean, oh, thank goodness. So so here's just a few photos. I just have a few photos, and 7:57. Okay, I think I can get them done. This is the Baker townhome in New York City. This is what it looks like today, because they lived there. They were big New York Cityites. And then, oh, here you go. This is a picture of Birdie. So you can see, here's the corner of the Hollins house right here. Here's that sort of gazebo gardening area. And then there was that house that now sits where the parking lot is. So that's pretty cool. And then here's Birdie in 1940, working with her friends, packing for the British War Relief in New York City. And then here's a picture of David Osgood's father and Cecil Baker. I'm not sure where they are. You know, I'm not sure where they are, if they're in the Hollins house or if they're, I'm not sure. But then here's a picture from 1940 of Teresa and Cecil Baker at 62 Pasatiempo Drive, their current home. And I don't know if they're in the driveway or where they are. And I don't know what that house is. So that's something to research. And then this is a picture of David's parents, Catherine and Bill. They got married in August of 1942. So here's the newlyweds. And then this is Bird Hill Lane in 1943, the house that sold for $8,000. And of course it's gone. You know, Birdie's in the front yard. The house is gone and replaced by the 2-story white house. And then in 1944, this is David's father and mother, and then Birdie at 5 Bird Hill in the backyard. And this house here is Bill and Mary Albanise's house, because they live right next door to that house. And that's been remodeled. And then here's a picture of David's mother, Catherine, and Cecil Baker, also in the backyard. And then finally, a big thanks to Birdie and David for being able to bring you this little extra bit of history, because Cecil Baker had been a mystery man until David Osgood reached out and gave us he gave us family photos, an oral history and everything. So I just, you know, and David Osgood is alive and well. He lives up in Sea Cliff, San Francisco. He lives up in San Francisco. Let's see, where does he live? And it's called, he lives on the Embarcadero in San Francisco. And he has a brother, David, who, let's see, no, his brother was William, and he was an active Santa Cruz surfer and served in Vietnam. But now his brother lives in Hawaii and continues to win surfing contests. Now, this was back in 2010. So I don't know if his brother's still going to be winning surf contests, but anyway, so are there, you know, any questions about that? And I hope you enjoyed that about the Osgoods.
Fabulous.
Emily,
Really
thank you for,
interesting.
yeah, thank you for all your time. My, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice, you know, to have David reach out. He gave this to me and I put it, you know, I can put anything in a PowerPoint test presentation, and as long as you guys watch, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah,
It
it's
makes
great.
it all worthwhile.
Yes.
So